Hey folks, so today we are going to work on a butterfly image for a pendant. I want to thank Mr. Pascal Lau with Hoshi and Laser uh, for sponsoring this series here. It's going to be a two-part series. The initial part of it's going to be where we take and create the design and run a prototype using a real thin piece of aluminum. And then tomorrow we will do the actual cut into sterling silver. I believe in the video somewhere I say stainless, I meant sterling. So, but anyway, yeah, this is going to be true sterling silver, 1.5 millimeter whenever we get to that point. But this video is just going to be using a thin piece of aluminum to get our prototype cut out, check out our line weight and all of that. And it's going to turn out to be a really nice piece. So this is what we are going to make today. So if you are in the market for a fiber laser, CO2 laser, UV, CO2, galvo heads, or even any upgrades for the current lasers you have. The laser which I'm using here had a 30-watt Racus, and I got a hold of Mr. Pascal and talked to him about it and bought a 50-watt JPT. Ordered it within a week. It was here, and that evening I messaged him, and he got me in contact with one of the engineers there, and they walked me through any of the questions that I had as far as the installation. It was very easy. Most of these machines are pretty much a unitized as far as different parts, and just a little bit of walkthrough, nothing to it. So if you are in the market for a laser, I would definitely contact Pascal. And these are some great people, great customer service. And I have talked to him before when things have kind of went south on a shipping or something with another customer. And I know from the way he speaks, it means so much to him to make sure that a customer is 100% satisfied with what they've got. So again, thank you, Pascal, for all your help and for your dedication to your customers. You have a great day. We're going to get to this. Going to create a butterfly pendant. It's eventually going to be silver, but I'm going to do it in two parts because it takes so long to do these, and I don't think a lot of people want to watch an hour at a time. So I'm going to break this into a little smaller sections this time around. We're going to start out with the creation phase, and then the creation and prototype, I should say. And then we will actually go in and do the laser cutting itself. I would like to, as much as possible, keep the time real instead of speeding the time up or something like that. I want you to actually see the process uh, as it is. Now, I'm not downing people that speed the process up. They do it because, the viewers don't want to sit there and watch the laser just go. But for me, I, as a person trying to learn or perhaps decide on a project, want to see, okay, is this the right thing to do? Is it something that I want to try as far as a business aspect? And for that, you have to make decisions on how long it takes to do it, because time is money and time's what you're going to have to charge the client. So without further ado, we are going to go back into Lightburn, and I am going to kind of start from there. Um, I'll go ahead and add one more layer to this share window, and we'll go there. All right, so I'll have to try to manage these windows um, as much as possible. Um, Now, a point on images. Folks, you got to be careful about pulling images off the internet. Um, Usually, these kind of line arts, you're not going to get into any trouble, but still, they do belong to someone. Um, I like to do a lot of work in my trace, which allows me to get a good cut. For doing something in a pendant, you need something with a lot of line weight, especially when you're using metals that you're going to have the wobble on. An image, I'm hoping you're able to see this. My mouse cursor here shows you can. An image like this, for example, uh, real thin lines in the wings. It might look pretty cool on the getting it cut out, but it's not going to have any strength in it. Whereas this one here, you can tell that it has a lot more line weight in it, and we can do something with this. I still have not decided if uh, I am going to try to fill in these holes in the wings with some type of coloring, or uh, I really would like to try to do some opal inlay. So let's see here, get you back over into Lightburn. All right. All right, so we are back into Lightburn. We're going to go ahead and paste this image in. And before we bring it down, we're going to go ahead and trace it. Obviously, when you have a good, solid black and white image, your trace tool is going to work much better. It's nice, clean lines, as you can see here. It knows where it needs to be, and so you're going to get a good trace out of it. So this is a good trace. Um, we may do a lesson or go through on this sketch trace and stuff later on. It can be pretty finicky. All right, so I went ahead and imported this over in. We'll bring it down and kind of look at it at a size of a pendant. Now, this one here is a really nice fitting pendant, and if you select this here, we got a 42 by 34. So let's go ahead and bring this one down to a 42 with the locked aspect and see what that looks like. So that's not bad right there. 41,997. I think this would be a really nice pendant. And, you could do quite a bit with this. So let's go ahead and cut some layers, take this off a fill, bring it in a line. And, if we wanted to, we could put a circle or something here in the center, and, possibly set up for a mounting on here. problem is I use flat metal. My stainless, I use a mill to flatten it. And if I'm going to be doing any kind of mountings or anything like that, then I use about a 1.5 thickness, which comes out to a pretty good chunk of silver, and it can raise the price of this pendant up quite a bit. So we're just going to keep it as it is and work through here. Um, Everything looks good on this. It's going to have a nice cutout. We got some nice shapes in here. Now, what we could do is do a combination of effects, and that would be that we could have part of the butterfly where the holes are cut out, and part of the butterfly where instead of a true cutout, this would be engraved down and then cleaned and flushed, and then some type of inlay put into it. And that's really where I want to go with this. Is I've got some nice crushed opal that I think would look real cool in these holes. And because we're going to be mounting this butterfly not in a center strip, but instead on each side, it means that butterfly is not going to be turning around on the necklace or anything like that. So it's always going to have a face forward effect on it. Let's see. Let's go ahead and just, because I want to try to move through this fairly fast, so I'm not hanging you out. Let's go ahead, and we've already got the size of the butterfly set up. Let's go ahead and draw our circles for the mounts. That one hit perfect. 2 millimeter, which is about the size I like to use. We're going to go over here with this selected and do an offset, and I'll let you see. So the inside is going outside. So the inside is a 2 millimeter and the outside is a 3 millimeter. I personally like a little bit more meat on that. This is a stress point. So we are going to go, oops. Let's go 1.5. 1.5 looks good. Whoops. I still do that. I hate it. All right. Select tool. Bring this in. And I am going to mount these right here in the tip of these wings. Now, a little trick for those that may not realize this. If you're trying to bring something into your artwork and your mouse is jumping around and you really can't, get it where you want it. Even now, I got closer and it's still trying to jump around on me. Go ahead and zoom in. The further you zoom in, the more precise your snap to is going to be, and it allows you much more precision. We don't need a lot of this part of the circle exposed. We can integrate that in as long as this inner circle is not touching this part, we'll be fine. So we're going to move this out just a touch, and we're going to leave it right into the center of this. Whoops. You see what I'm talking about as far as you're trying to snap on you. I come in a little bit, and then all of a sudden I've got a perfect move. Okay. before I before I meld that or weld it in, let's duplicate so it's the same size on the other side. Bring this in. We don't want this getting into any of the other artwork. We don't want it too close to any of those holes either, so that it does not create a weak point there. All right, so shift and click on the other artwork. Remember, when you do a weld, that you bring it in, you start with the primary and then click on the secondary. And there's the weld. Shift and click. There's the weld. It's very nice and clean. Now, something that I like to do, and we'll go ahead and do that now, is I work from inside out on my jewelry. And the reason for this is I want to make sure that all of the cuts on the inside are done before it starts trying to work on this outside line. Also, it makes it, you have a lot more travel on this outside line here. And so if it's going out here and doing a cut and then going back inside and running each one of these and then going all the way back out here again, it it seems like to me that the cut takes much longer, takes more passes because it's letting the metal cool all the way down before it's able to get back over to the cut again. And so you're kind of taking uh, one step forward and yeah, a half a step back every time you run the cut. So we're going to do this inside. We're going to select these. That's the reason I always have my blue line and my black line. The black line is actually, in this case, we're going to ungroup. The black line is usually my outside. We'll assign that. And we'll go ahead and turn that on so it's easy to see. Now, in this case, because there are so many cuts that needs to be done in here, we're actually going to do a left and a right, with the exception of, yeah, we're going to do a left and a right. So we're going to add another color into here, or another layer, if you will. So let's go ahead and start working on this left side. Remember, if when you're drawing the box and you go from left to right, the box has to be surrounding the items completely for it to select it. We'll make those that way. However, if you go from right to left, anything that box is touching will be selected. We'll go ahead and do, whoops, get over here. Red. Red. Now, I wish there was a faster way of doing this, but there really isn't. Um, Sometimes it's just faster to work through here. Oh, come on. I hate it when it does that. Okay. Let's start getting these selected here. Get this big stuff done. So a few notes about working with silver. Um, you have to have a really good exhaust or something to move the smoke that's produced, or the ash, whatever you want to call it, carbon. It will get in between the beam of the laser and your workpiece and deflect the beam and or degrade it so that it will not work, will not cut. So you need to make sure to have something pulling that away from your work area very quickly. Another note, and we will show that when I'm actually doing this, is if you get a solution of boric acid, it's nothing more than boric acid and water in a little spray bottle. You can actually use that to help reduce the oxidization that's being produced, and use it in between your cuts. Just spray it over real fast during that process, and it will actually flush all of that out quite well. And so the end process is having a much cleaner piece. All right, so what we've got now, as you can see, we have all on the left side running one color, right side running another color, and then our outside line. Obviously, we want our outside line down in the bottom, so it goes last. So it's going to work blue first, red second. All right, so now let's turn that on, and we will look at, so fill, and fill. Whoops. Interesting enough, that didn't work the way I really wanted it to. Anyway, I really want something right here in the center. And we might, you know what, I'm actually going to take this out. The American butterfly, red, white, and blue. So we are going to play. All righty, there we go. Just like that right there. Let's bring this in. Go ahead, center him up. Beautiful. All right, so that's a 2x6. And so we're just gonna, right now, we're gonna run a test cut on this and check my line weight and see how it all works. But to do that, we need to go ahead and go in here and set all of this up. So for cuts in silver, I like to run at 100 speed, 100 power, 40 frequency, obviously line weight, wobble, 0.5 and step. Actually 0.25. And, or actually, you know what? I'm going to do a 1. Sorry. Size 0.28. Now, you can play with this number a little bit. Gold, you are definitely going to want to get closer to 0.33. Alex had done a video that really demonstrated the difference in the wobble size here. I have found that for whatever reason, I can run a 0.28 or right in that number and not have any back welds. So that's what I'll use. And all of these are going to be the same. They're all cuts as of right now. 100, 100. Now I'm going to be doing on my prototype is actually a thin piece of aluminum. So you don't really have to run it at 100% power. That's what I'm going to set it at. That one's already set up. Nope. Size 0.28. Now I'm going to start experimenting with this kerf offset. And if I am not mistaken, it's possible that I am, the kerf offset is actually where you can take and move that cutting line in or out. And the issue that you have when you're running these big wobbles is that it's similar to taking a big fat marker and trying to draw with it compared to drawing with a fine line marker. And so if you're having to use that big thick marker, then you're going to want to draw inside of the line. Okay. Or in the case of, I'll come back over here. So, for example, this line here, you're going to want it to run on the outside. You want your kerf to run along this edge on the outside. If you're running these inside lines, however, you're going to want your kerf running on the inside. That way, your waste, what's burned up, being burned away, is not out here. And so you have a true line size. That's important if you are going to be doing, as I have done on other pieces, and mount a gemstone. Because if you try to make that cut for a 2 millimeter gemstone, for example, and it's not using a kerf offset, but instead taking out from both ends, then you're not going to have a 2 millimeter hole. So I'm going to experiment on that kerf offset. I have not messed with it, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know how to do it. But I'm theorizing that that is the correct deal. I am concerned, however, about these antennae. Uh, they're a little thin and they could easily be bent or broken off. So we're going to go ahead and thicken them out a little bit. So we are going to select our node tube. Now you notice, folks, that I'm not going into any special graphics tools or anything like that. I'm just using Lightburn to do all my editing. Uh, I want as much practice in Lightburn working this. Now, in these node tools, by the way, you take you know learn what each of these nodes do and how they work, and you can really do a lot of adjustment in here. We're going to just this lines out just a little bit and make them a little thicker. Add a little more line weight into here. I would strongly advise, or strongly, I guess is the wrong word, but I sure suggest that you look into possibly getting a trackball mouse. I really like mine. It gives me a lot more control about what I'm doing and lets me work this kind of images. Now, I know it looks a little fat right now, but as I indicated, once this actually gets cut out, it's going to cut part of this line out. And so you're not going to see that as much. Antennas don't have to be perfectly in line. I mean, this is nature. And very seldom does nature have straight lines. Be careful about the fact that we are working in this center. Um, make sure that we have a good amount of meat up here in this nose or front of the butterfly. And then, of course, we want to make sure that everything is centered there. Looks good. And you don't have to look at my ugly mug. All right. Before I start my laser machine, safety glasses. Folks, I drove a truck for 20 years. And in that 20-year period, I learned a very valuable lesson. Create a habit, and that habit will stay with you throughout your career or whatever you're doing. So set in your mind no exceptions. Laser on, glasses on. Laser on, glasses on. And that will get you to a point where even if you are distracted or doing something over here or somebody's back there jabbing in your ear, you'll put these on. And most likely, if you put these on and somebody's there jabbering in your ear, you're going to tell them, hey, you need to either wear glasses or get out. One of the two. All right, so we've got our laser, got it going. And I lucked out. I came across a whole bunch of these little, just scrap aluminum thin sheets, really thin, but they make great little prototype cutouts because they'll give me an idea of my line weight, how strong the piece is going to be because these are really thin. And word of my device, oh, my bike over hiding from me. Doing this kind of work, you are going to need to get a vise. They range in price. I have been totally wiped out over here. Missing parts. Where did my? Oh man. I'll definitely need to cinch this down. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Aha, you lucked out. I actually got this over on Amazon. It this one here was only $40. It did not come with these arms here. I just used the didn't come with these arms. These are the arms that goes on the laser machine. But weirdly enough, the holes that are tapped into this vise are fit are the same ones that fit on my table and my deck. But you have to have something like this to be able to work these sheets because they're going to warp and try to move on you, especially if it's real thin metal. And having it there makes it where it won't do that. Let's go ahead and do a frame up real fast before I shut down my other layers so I can get an outside frame. Beautiful. That's going to be a beautiful size pendant right there, folks. All right, so not real difficult. I mean, just shut down your outside layer and one of the left or right, depending on which one you want to do first. They're all set at the same power. So we'll just go ahead and start on one and run it. Da-da-da-da. This stuff runs really fast and probably maybe 3, 4 passes, and it's going to be cut through. Uh, that is, if I make sure to put it in focus. All right. So as I said, this one here, I'm not engraving. I'm just going to cut. I'm going to go ahead and get it going. All right. So I had mentioned, man, this laser's making this speaker microphone really act up. But I had mentioned using a boric acid on silver at least. In the middle of my cut, I have a spray bottle, and I will take that spray bottle and spray a spritz of this boric acid over the piece while it's being cut. And what will happen is 1 or 2 layers into that cut of that cut will flush out all the carbon and the black out of the cut and make them much cleaner. One of the other things that you'll need, and I'll show that tomorrow whenever I do the true piece, is the pickling agent. You can easily get that at, it's almost all the way through already. You can easily get this pickling agent from Amazon. I suggest using a citric acid. It's much less hazardous, if you will, and safer. And go ahead and get you, if you're going to be doing this very much, get you one of those little cheap, small crock pots because the pickling agent works much, much better when it's warm. Doesn't have to be boiling hot, but it does need to be warm, and it will save you a lot of time. Okay, so that's cut. We'll go ahead and stop it and close, and then go to my layers, shut that one down, start the other one up, and laser it. I would like to thank Mr. Pascal Vial and Hassan Laser uh, for sponsoring this particular video series here. I'm sorry, I'm looking at another reply. Oh, I forgot to turn the repeat on. All right, perfect. Now we can do the outside. Run continuously. So obviously, you don't necessarily have to have silver to do this kind of stuff. You can use jeweler's brass. I wouldn't suggest using copper um, because of the reflectivity of the copper itself, but you could do copper. Um, I think brass would probably be your best alternative. Stainless is a bit hard to cut without, a true fiber laser cutter. It could be done. Oops, oops, done. Oh, yeah. That's hot. That's pretty. That is pretty, folks. I think it's gonna make a beautiful pendant. Okay, let's so a nice size for a pendant. Um, so this is definitely going to be a project piece. So taking the time to go ahead and do a prototype saves you a lot of time down the road. It lets you adjust your timing and everything. And you'll notice that obviously, this is a thin piece. You can kind of see it's pretty thin. But what it does though is it lets you plan things out a little better. This is I think this would make a gorgeous pendant, and my line thickness, even for the antennae, are good. I can see that once I use a 1 millimeter thick piece of silver, that the antenna is going to be in good shape. My two chain mounts links are in good, they're real good and solid, even on this thin piece. I have good line weight in my wing area, so I don't have to worry about the wings breaking off on a pendant. I do not have any exposed sharp points. This is kind of important on pendants that some people don't really take account for, especially if they're doing, name pendants. But you got to remember, um, something like this is going to be for a young lady, and so you pardon my unpolitical ways, but it's going to be since it's going to be for a woman, it's going to be in the bosom. And so if it's something setting into that V groove there, and it has some sharp points or something like that, it's going to be uncomfortable. And you want to make sure that you're creating pieces that it's comfortable for them to wear, and have that in your mind whenever you're creating these pieces. And so I think this is really going to do well. Uh, I will create a next part, and it is going to be the actual process of. I'm not sure if I'm going to take you out there in my smelter and run the smelter for it, but and do the milling, or just go straight from the cut into the cutting process, because a piece like this is probably going to take about 35 to 45 minutes for the whole cutting process, because I am going to use a 1.5 millimeter thick piece of silver. And then once that is done, I am, before I actually do that, I'm going to decide whether or not to act to leave this as an engraving here and clear it with the borax that I was telling you about. Run a cleaning pass inside of there and use it as an engraving, and then fill that with crushed opal and bring some color and some pop to the pendant. I like silver. I like clean silver, but I think also too a little bit of color never hurts, especially when you're talking about a butterfly. I love butterflies. I love the color um, and the way that the flow of a butterfly. So I will see you folks the next time. You have a great day and God bless.